This podcast is brought to you by Barry's Tea. Family owned since 1901, Barry's Tea have spent many years perfecting their blends, and for me, Barry's Tea is the best tasting tea in Ireland. I really like the Barry's Tea Master Blend. That's the one in the black box. It's crafted with the expertise of their master blender, who told me personally they only use their highest quality leaves for a richer, full-bodied flavour. It's one for the true tea connoisseurs. Barry's Tea also brings with it a sense of home, belonging and connection. Just one sip of Barry's Tea and you're home. So stick the kettle on, make a cup of Barry's Tea and enjoy the podcast. Today's guest is another one of Ireland's most recognisable faces. Decorated is the word I've used. Radio and TV host, having spent nearly 30 years now, gracing both mediums and plying his trade in the UK on Virgin Radio. Ryan Tubridy, welcome.
Well, Mark, nice to see you and thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
No, it's
I know
pleasure.
you're an extremely busy man. You picked for your ingredients cinnamon.
Yes.
In front of you, you have basically a version of French toast.
Oh yeah, nice.
Nice and plain.
Thank you.
With a bit of cinnamon.
Yes.
Now, I assume with that 30-year career, the glitz and glamour of TV, late shows, Virgin Media, London now.
Yeah.
Virgin Radio, apologies.
That's all right.
Flashy restaurants, high life.
Yeah.
How does
I would
food
say
sit?
whatever the opposite of flashy and the opposite of high life is obviously low life. So I think that people expect me to have a certain gastronomic sense of, palate. And then they meet me and they go, why does everything have to have mac in front of it? Or, why so basic? And I'm not sure what it is. I think it might have been my mother and my father. I used to get slagged when I worked in RT because Tubbs is gas. He's like a farmer. He likes his dinner in the middle of the day. I love that. Yeah, really basic food. I've got desperately plain habit. And in fact, a listener once said, you have a nursery palate. And I think that was a really nice way of putting it. It's a polite way of saying you eat like a child. But I really do. And people always think, as you say, the high life and fine restaurants and fine dining. It's the opposite. I will probably in the course of this conversation surprise people if they care about what I eat, which they seem to. Here we go. I live in a small house, and one of the things in the house during COVID, I did a couple of Zoom calls, and I went on the radio the next day, and I said that was bizarre. Yesterday, I was trying to do calls, and the rumble of the washing machine was distracting, and the comment that came in from listeners was, you don't have utility room. And I was saying, well, no, people have expectations of you. So let's see what we can do with those expectations in this conversation. It's mad.
What did you have for dinner last night then?
I had a grilled chicken fillet with some broccoli, a carrot, and what's the other one? It's the white one. Cauliflower.
Cauliflower.
Yeah, and some boiled potatoes with loads of butter and salt. And that's heaven.
And do you cook?
Would you call that cooking?
Yeah.
Boiled water with vegetables in it and a grilled bit of meat. I mean, yeah, I'm a functioning eater. That's a good word for me. Don't go to too much. Now, I do treat myself. I like to go to the same restaurant. I'm a creature of habit. I'll go to FXB's. You know that restaurant?
Yeah.
There's one in Monkstown near where I live, and there's one in Pembroke Road. And if I'm meeting people for dinner, I'll say, we'll go there. Why? Because they have medallions of beef. They even cut it for you. I mean, they're short of chewing it for you and giving it to you back. It's so straightforward. And there's a little bar. And I like the fact there's a bar there so you can have a pint. And I like the staff there. And you get a good meal. No starters, no messing. Straight in, no kissing.
You wouldn't be into now these marathons.
Please.
Experiences.
Let's get the food sorted so we can head to O'Donoghue's. That's where I'm at with the food. I'm very disrespectful probably to it. And yet, I moved to London a year ago and I've realised how much I love Irish food. So I love the meat in Ireland. I think it's better, frankly. And I love the vegetables that I eat here because I think they're better. I love the butter. I love the brown bread. All the things that I thought, okay, that's a bit hokey. It's a bit, I miss Ireland.
Tweed.
Yeah. And yet I do. So I come home and I'll always get my Super Quinn sausages. They're still called Super Quinn sausages, even though they're in Super Value. I know my Super Value so well because I know exactly where to go for what. So yeah, I eat quite well actually. For despite appearances, I look after myself because I have to. Otherwise, I would die. I'd die of hunger. I can barely wash my own face. I'm just strangely inept at so many things.
Going to the supermarket, so you do your own shopping.
Yeah. Oh God. Who else? I mean, we're actually
Do you
the
not have a
utility room.
concierge now?
Do you know? I mean, I do my own shopping, and I love Super Value. Became my youth hostel in during COVID. I'd go there to meet people. I went there on during the week, and 3 of the staff, they all came out to have the chats because we became quite friendly. Now we're friends, hanging out in the pub, but I like that sense of community and the society of it, and. So yeah, I always go there, and then I pop in to get my Leonidas chocolates.
Nice.
I have specific ones that if you want to know, I'll tell you about them later. But yeah, I have my habits.
And as one of Ireland's most recognisable faces, I like asking that question. If you go into the supermarket doing those normal things, you told me once, and it's always stuck in my head.
What's that?
Always kind of keep walking. Give people time, but
yeah, you keep jogging. Like, I mean, and I think that's because sometimes you can get caught and you're on the clock, you know, so you keep going. But I love people, so I come from quite a political family, and I think there must be something genetic about shaking hands and kissing babies, because I love meeting people, and I love when they come up to say hello, and you know, whether it's in the pub or in the shop or wherever it might be. So while I like a shark, you have to keep swimming.
I've seen you in action.
Have you really? Do I keep moving?
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
But with a smile.
Always with a smile. I mean, I love when people come up and say hello and everything. So when you present the Late Late Show, which I did for 14 years, and then did a Tubridy Tonight for 5 before that, at the time, television, this is a TV thing in the corner of a room, people might remember, was, you know, such that everyone knew who you were. And particularly with the toy show then, you see, because then all generations knew who you are. So you had that gas thing where the kids would point and go, the toy man.
Yep.
The adults would go, your man drives me mad, or I like him. You know, like it depends. It's fine. It's curate's egg if we're talking about food. And then in the middle of it all, you'd have the kids growing up. So now I'm in the pub and 21, 2, 3-year-olds come on and go, you're at Christmas. You know, there's a real nostalgia to meeting people now, which I really love. It was very cute, yeah.
Take me back a little bit. So childhood lunches, school box.
Peanut butter and jam sandwiches, a packet of hula hoops, a club milk. That was it. And
Every day.
Pretty much every day. And then I got into fig rolls. I love fig rolls still. And I used to put 6 of them in cling film every day. At Christmas, we'd get a tin of coconut creams. So I'd be having them up to Easter because no one else wanted them. So I'd have 3 in a, wrapped up and as part of the lunch every day. So yeah, every day, same old lunch. There was a school canteen then when I was in secondary school, and they did school dinners. And I loved those bacon and cabbage, and then like apple sponge and custard. That really basic stuff. I loved all that. So yeah, school lunch was fine for a while. Then it just got really boring. Do you remember the same thing every day? But yeah, really unhealthy and really delicious, but boring.
And then at home, so talk to me a bit about childhood. You've a pretty big family now.
Yeah, there's 5 of us, and mum and dad, and then I mean, once upon a time things change, but dinners at home were pretty straightforward. There was. I remember Friday was a sort of fish pie of some sort. I don't eat fish. I don't eat anything from the water, so that's probably we can talk about that too, because I like fishing, which is weird. God, I'm quite odd actually. The more when it comes out, I'm going, wow, what a strange man. But yeah, dinner wasn't important at home.
Okay.
Food wasn't important at home. It was just a case of, get it into and get out. We were talkers, we're just too busy talking for food. So
what was important at home then?
Chatting, politics, newspapers, the news, music. A little record player with 45s, singles, Janice Ian, Leo Sayer, I think YMCA, long before Trump took it. And these were the kind of songs that were, in the repertoire of my folks and stuff. Neil Diamond, of course, and that sort of thing. So yeah, music and talk, and yeah, it was fun. It was a fun house. And our dog, Ruskin, the red setter, who was the 5th Beatle. Yeah, he was really part of the family, and he would. I often think of him with running along the beach and the seagulls just going, this lunatic. And there was a lovely image of the water splashing, and if the sun hit it the right way, it was like a beautiful movie. But yeah, Ruskin was a family.
Happy childhood? Yeah,
largely happy, yeah. Really good. I enjoyed school a lot. I had good friends, and I was a reader. I was a bit of a nerd, surprise, bookworm, but interested in the world, always interested in the world. Yeah. I enjoyed life as a kid.
I found out recently from doing the research for this that I think my parents would have worked with your father.
In St. John of God?
St. John of
Is that
God's.
right? In what context were they there?
So my father was psychologist there for 40
Was he
plus
really?
years. And my mother actually subsequently was CEO for 10 plus years.
They would easily have known him. Yeah, yeah.
And I would have grown up with a sort of awareness of mental health and talking about it, and from overhearing things in work long before, I suppose it's so mainstream now to talk about it.
Yes.
But I was wondering, is that something growing up that you would have had a sort of interest or a knowledge of?
So my father was a psychiatrist who mostly dealt with people who had drink problems, and he didn't talk about it. Like the joke I always say is, my dad was the psychiatrist. He never brought his work home, hence me. That's the. I know it sounds silly, but it's kind of a goofy line, but it's a bit of fun by way of explanation as to who and what he was. He was very droll, very warm man. He died about 10 years ago or so. He's from Galway. He's born in not Connemara, but in Oranmore, just outside Galway City. So I'm very proud of being half Galway because I love Galway and Connemara an awful lot. And there's places there I want to talk about that I like to eat because I'm comfortable and I'm happy there. Anyway, Dad was, he was a psychiatrist in John of God's, and he loved to watch Wile E. Coyote, which I always thought was one of the most bizarre things because that's the cartoon with the meep, and the Roadrunner. And I remember watching it, and he was bent over quadruple and red in the face laughing. And I was thinking, what is he seeing? That is so funny. And then I realized as I got older, he was a psychiatrist. He was looking at futility. That thing is never going to catch the other thing. And yet we still do it. We're humans. We have on a darker day, you can say we have a pointless existence. On a happier day, you can say, well, maybe he'll get the Roadrunner someday. Anyway, I digress. He was he had great sense of humor. So like Dave Allen, the comedian, he liked Fawlty Towers. So he gave me that sense of humor, and also gave me his lack of interest in food. And my mother's the same, no interest.
What does she do?
She was a stay-at-home mum. She was a housewife, quite glam. Still is. She's alive and well. She's in her 80s now, but still the hair gets done every week. I mean, old school. She's cracked. Like she had a lot of fun. She says herself sometimes when she sees an older person, I'll say, look at the head in your man or whatever, and she says, oh yeah, well he won't die wondering, because he had such, he clearly had a big life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
all sorts of appetites, but yeah, she was good fun too. So they brought different things to Mum brought the party, and Dad brought the sort of intellectual curiosity, if you like. Great reader.
Did you always know you were going to go into this line of work then?
Pretty much, yeah. From the age of, I think it was about 9, I went around the streets with a tape recorder with my brother and a little plastic microphone that worked. And I went around, I know now what I was doing, it was called a vox pop. I was just tapping neighbours, hello. And a woman, we spoke to several ladies and men, I should say, who are you and where are you from? And anyway, we got home with the cassette tape and we said, oh my God, we've met royalty. I didn't know Mrs. So-and-so across the road down the road was a member of the royal family. And my folks and everyone was saying, well, play the tape. Who was this, person? So we hit play, and it was me, little voice saying, and who are you? And she said, and I said, essentially to the family, this woman she's a baroness. She told us her story. And I said, no, what's your name? My name is Mrs. Phil. And where are you from? I'm from England. And do you have any children? No, I'm barren. Which we thought,
to a 9-year-old,
we thought she was royalty, but she was actually just unable to have children. So it was. Do you see what happened there? Yeah, it was the most unfortunate misunderstanding. So obviously everyone else found it kind of mildly hilarious. I didn't know what the joke was, but off we go. The leader of the Labour Party at the time in the UK, this is how deep dive nerdy we were, was a man called Michael Foot, who was quite mad. And I used to be on the back of the couch, 8 years old, whatever, and I'd stick my leg up and I'd go with my foot going, I am the leader of the Tory party.
This is Dublin in the 19 whatever.
This is the Dublin in the 1979, 80, 81. That was my idea of the crack, was pretending to be the leader of the British Labour Party while interviewing old women on the street. My future was written quite early on. What a life.
Oh,
Yeah.
How'd you get into it then? Where did you start?
Well, what happened was my dad used to bring us to the cinema a lot, myself and my younger brother, Garrett. And we ran out of films, and I wrote a letter. He said, write to the Irish Times. And he wasn't very demonstrative in terms of, not. I don't mean that in love, he was very loving, but in terms of saying, write to the Irish Times. He wouldn't be a show-off. He was very low-key. But he said, write to the Irish Times and give out. So I wrote a letter saying, dear sir,
What age are you here?
12
Okay.
and 3/4.
Set in the context.
Yeah, it was 1986.
You've moved on from the...
Well, I haven't moved that far away, I think, really. But I just said, look, it's just the Goonies and Rocky 5, or, what's happening? Why aren't there more movies? It's Tootsie. Like what? And the letter got published on February the 20th, 1986, a day that shall live in infamy. Because then a kids' TV show called Anything Goes saw the letter, and it was signed Ryan Tubridy, age 12. I still have the letter, like it's there. So it's not like it's sort of an apocryphal story. Anyway, the researchers on this show saw the letter and said, well, he seems like a precocious kid. Let's get him in to review some films. So I reviewed 2 films on the TV. One was called The Adventures of Young Sherlock Holmes, starring Nicholas Rowe, and the other was called The Journey of Natty Gann. 2 films that died on the vine. No one ever saw them again. But I reviewed them, and I really enjoyed it. I think I got paid 25 pounds.
You got paid?
I got paid.
Nice.
And I thought, this is fun. So that went fine. And then within the year, so I got the confidence then, and listening to the radio, a show called Poporama came on, and they were reviewing books, these kids, and I said, I could do that. So I wrote in, and I got a letter back saying, we'll send in a tape. I did. They said, sent me books, and I did that for a couple of years until my voice broke and I was unemployable. Because you can't go in and say, I love Roald Dahl. You know what I mean? It's not a good look. I could maybe McDonald's or something. Well, I eventually work in Blake's restaurant and some pubs.
Blake's?
Do you remember Blake's in Stillorgan?
I remember Blake's.
I was a server, as they say now.
Really? You'd be a kitchen's nightmare because you'd be stuck at the table talking for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I would be kitchen.
Food going cold.
Food going cold. Great tips. Because I used to enjoy the chats, but it was just one of those. I had many jobs because I had little motorbikes. I used to love a little Vespa, not Vespa, but Honda 50s. I feel like I'm an old man rambling
No,
as I'm
I love
about to
that.
die. But I had these jobs, and they were great. I always think if younger people should always try and get a job in the service business, because it's good
Why?
for your confidence,
Yeah.
and you get to realize that some people are horrible and in life, and some people are really lovely. And it's a really good learning. You won't get it in college at 16, 17, 18. If you can get a part-time job, you just realize what humanity looks like early. Don't get cut out.
Is it the same in your current job?
In what do you mean?
When you're interviewing people, be it Late Show, be it radio shows?
Well, I mean, the restaurant and pub jobs were really good training. Because while college was great I did an arts degree. I mean, I loved it. And college was great for meeting people and
other things,
having the crack, but also I really liked it. I did Greek and Roman civilization, I did history, I did politics. I loved it, so that was fine. But it didn't teach me how to be a broadcaster. It taught me a bit of journalism and research, sure, for sure, doing essays and writing. And now that I write for newspaper here as well, it was I can see my college skills coming into play as I do 1,000 words a week, and you can knock it out comfortably enough. But back to your point. Interviewing people, is like a case by case. I mean, you'll see this yourself. You'll see some people come in and it's like pulling teeth. Some people come in, it's like, please stop talking. And some people will come in. No, well, I mean, it makes your job and mine much easier. But you don't have to be friends with everyone you interview. You just have to try and get on. I mean, it's back to the word is authenticity, and I think that once you've got that in an interview, and once it's the conversation and that's the other thing. It less interview, more conversation. An interview is like this. My voice goes up. I'm talking to you. My next question that leads us on to that's fine. That's fine on current affairs. But in a podcast situation, that's what was so nice about these shows, is that it's just shooting the breeze.
And you have time.
Time is of the essence. Like the Late Show was tough because you had 12 minutes, 15 minutes. Now I'm doing a books podcast. And I get these guests that I interviewed on the Late Show.
Great guests. I'll say annoyingly great
Well,
guests.
I got good guests. So we have Brian Cox from Succession, and Paul Giamatti, and David Walliams, and Alistair Campbell, Piers Morgan. All these people, they're easy to get in London. They're really nice people. But I only ever interviewed them for 12 or 14, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It was torture.
Yeah.
because it was such an awful construct, and you had to get to certain points in the interview. Now, I enjoyed the job, but now that I have them for an hour, it's great, and you can get to know them, and you have a proper conversation, and you see who the real person is. So that is very liberating.
Talk to me about the Late Late.
Yeah.
This was the question I really wanted to ask. I have printed in front of me.
Anything you like.
Obviously, you've got good and bad guests.
Yeah.
You've got nice people. You've got not so nice people.
Mostly lovely.
Okay.
And that's not Pollyanna. That's truth.
So talk to me, in 14 years of doing it, are there
Yeah.
standout moments of interviews where,
Well,
let's start with uncomfortable, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no, I don't mind at all. I think I look back on my 14 years. Let me talk about the end, and then we'll go towards the beginning, if that's okay. I decided about a year before I was leaving, maybe 8-10 months, something happened, like an epiphany. I said, I think I'm done here. And I called my daughters and I said, girls, I'm going to walk away. And they said, you look different, because I'd made this decision. So I decided it was time to go. And I had the most beautiful departure. It was so nice. Everyone was so loving. The audience, they put together a great show. Paul McCartney sent a video message. The kids from the toy show came. It was really emotional. My mum was in the audience, and I know she wasn't because she was sick, but family were in the audience. And it was a very proud day. So I loved that. So that was great. So I left it with a really good vibe, which is really important. I was, there's repetition, because Ireland is very small. It's very beautiful. It's very small. So you feel the same guests are coming around again. And it's somebody else's turn to do it. And that's and then they pick somebody else, and I know off they go. So that's that. Now, where do you want me to go from here?
Guests.
That's the scene setter. Guests. So guests, there were some that you kind of go, oh, that's exciting. Like for me, Harry Connick Jr., the singer, I was like, with an orchestra, that's great. I fell in love with certain artists that I loved coming in. I loved Villagers, Conor O'Brien. I just thought you had the voice of an angel. There's a young guy called Malachy who I really like as well, and Tolu McKay. And there were just other singers that you just got, that's amazing. And we had, I went to New York to interview Hillary Clinton. We ended up getting on really well, and I interviewed her several times since then. And we've been in touch, and I just thought that was fascinating, being that close to history as well, which was great. I was interviewed all the, between Mary Robinson, Mary McAleese, Michael D. Higgins, up in the Oris many times. That's a privilege. I love that. I've interviewed all the Taoiseach. I love that, because I was interested in politics. It was great to see them face to face. You had Leo Varadkar on your show, so you know what that's like. It's nice to see them letting loose. And in the green room, for example, where the guests hang out, you see a very different side to people. They're really nice, and people go, I hate her, I hate him. And I often said, well, actually, if you sat down with them for 10 minutes, you'd be surprised. They're not just what you see on the TV or in the paper. So I always like to try and humanize guests as well, rather than go at them.
You interviewed Gordon Ramsay?
Yeah, Gordon Ramsay was. What I realise now is that when I interviewed him, I was quite thin-skinned.
I have a quote. I may or may not use this that you gave at the time.
Go on, what did I say? He took the mickey out of my ears or something.
That was it.
Yeah. And what's the quote?
It's something about, I think it was the book that it was potentially given. I think he was promoting a book.
Yeah.
And I believe the quote was something along the lines of, the complimentary book was left in the studio behind you.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I think that sounds like
I softened that.
No, that's okay. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very good. Okay. Parboiled, if you will. I think that's really interesting, because I would never say that now. Because I mean, then I was like, oh, I look back at parts of my career and I think, what an insufferable pain in the hoop that guy is. Yeah. And then I look back and say, fair play, well done. I'm not self-loathing. But, there are just, I think if you're a footballer, he says, using an analogy, he doesn't understand. You have good seasons and bad seasons, and good games and bad games. And I think what's nice about being 51, which I am now, is that you can look back really honestly about that and say, nah, that was pretty rubbish. Yeah. So, if people say, oh, that was terrible, they're probably right. If they say that was great, they're probably right too.
Thank you to Barry's Tea for supporting this podcast. Barry's Tea holds a special place in people's hearts, not just because it tastes amazing, but because as Irish people, Barry's Tea is one of those special things that connects us to home and that sense of belonging. We drink it in cafes, restaurants, at book clubs. We even bring it on our holidays and drink it all over the world. No matter where you are or what you're doing, one sip of Barry's Tea and you're home. Talk about the structure of the Late Late Show. So
Yeah.
we obviously watch it. It comes on at 9:30 and finishes at whatever 11:30.
It's a juggernaut.
What does that day look like for you?
Yeah, it's a week for sure.
Okay.
But the day it's a really tight operation. It's certainly, I can't talk for now, but when I was there, great program teams, very big teams. They were all assigned a guest, sometimes two. And we'd sit down on the Thursday, mostly in the afternoon, and we'd go through every single guest. So somebody would produce a brief on the guest, and we'd sit down, we'd have read that, and we'd thrash it out and say, where are we going to go with this interview? Where do you want to go? What else can we do? Visuals, and maybe can we add something in the audience, that kind of thing. And then the day involves meeting again, just to say how was the structure of the show. I used to always go home for a snooze, because I'd had the radio show in the morning. Yeah, and once I got to my 40s, I learned how to snooze. Like power nap. It was great. One of God's great gifts. 20 minutes to 40 minutes, and part 2. Where are we? Day 2. And then you'd have a rehearsal, and then you'd order in Camille or whatever. That was pretty much the standard issue order. Sometimes Eddie Rockets. It was kind of the same sort of stuff. Yeah. The odd Bunsen, but it didn't travel well. Beautiful burger, if you want to talk about food. But that was Bunsen is up there with Shake Shack, But I love my burgers. And then the show. And the show was a great buzz. I loved live. Live was key. If it was recorded, I would have been gone years ago. But live is an adrenaline kick. And then the show would finish, go into the green room, and we'd have beers. I love beer. I don't drink wine, spirits necessarily. Bit here, bit there, but mostly beer. Bag of cans. I'm a big fan of the bag of cans. I love going to someone's house with a bag of cans and saying, and like I got into the craft beer during the COVID, and so bag of cans.
That surprises me.
Why?
I don't know.
You thought it was fine wine. Did you chat enough to Pop over here? But
excuse my ignorance.
No, but that's what this show is about. It's finding out stuff. And the bag of cans is a very good off license in Blackrock that does Irish beers.
Yep.
Like Hop Off and stuff like that. I'm not
Joel.
an expert. What's that?
Joel, the owner.
Is that who it is?
Cellar, yeah.
Blackrock Cellar. That's it. They're really good.
They're really good.
And there's Heaney's beer, which is lovely bottles and really lovely label as well. And there's loads of great Irish. And Wicklow Wolf is good too. And there's just great Irish beers out there.
What was in your bag of cans when you were in your teenage years?
Oh, very good. Very good question. It was just Bavaria beer. That was just a young Irish experience, rite of passage, if you like. It moved on to. I was never into Dutch Gold. That was kind of like a
little low, right?
You're right. That's right. Even for me. But then it moved on to, in college. It was Foster's. Was always the beer behind the
They used to do pictures of that. Remember?
I don't know. We did that cans. I think pictures came later. And I love Guinness when I'm in the pub. By the way, I'll always have Guinness on draft. But it's bag of cans. Bag of cans to me equals great company. Because then, and also you just go into the fridge, and I love how cold it stays as well. So it's not like mulling over a glass of wine for hours and this is you must spit. Yeah, great. And how much? What year is it? What year? What time is it? I'm out of here if you're going to keep it. And it's so boring. So no, just that lovely. There's a fresh one now.
Would guests drink in the Late Late Show in the green room?
Oh yeah, we had great times in the Late Late Show. And we often had. One of the best nights was with the backing band of Chic, Nile Rodgers' band, and myself and the two lads. Ironically, we all agreed that this was really funny. Let's do Ebony and Ivory by Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder, and we did. I remember duetting with freaking Leo Sayer at one stage. I love a bit of karaoke, you see. So they dragged that in at the end of a season, or if Daniel O'Donnell came up, we had a few sing songs with him sometimes, and. Michael Fassbender is quite a handy singer. He came back to my brother's house. My brother used to say, come on back to my house after the show if the green room's dead, and we'd bring some of the team and some of the whoever was around and some of the guests, because it meant that you didn't have to get caught up in the green room thing if you don't want to. My brother said, fridge is open, beers, and it was nearby, and we had some very memorable nights. And Michael Gambon came back down one night. Fassbender was down, Jerry Ryan, of course, and some great guests. Steven Soderbergh was there that night with Fassbender.
Late into the night.
Did
you end up in town, or
no? That was it. That was it. And we all sat around the table talking. It was just very, very convivial. And one night, in the last couple of years, I became very friendly with Russell Crowe. And I told you that I was going to name drop, but and we'd had a few beers in the green room. But I said, "Look, I'm heading home." And he said, "Right, Brittany, we're going back to Ryan's." So we went back to my house, and I lit the fire, and it was myself and Russell and his girlfriend and his security detail, Andy, and the piano was there, and it's, as I say, a small house, but it's just books, fireplace, and a bit of a piano, and we had a great night. Bag of cans.
Love that. Speaking of tables, Dream dinner table, 4 guests.
Living?
Who are you picking? They could be living, they could be dead. We've many era.
Yeah, interesting. I'm not going to pick family or friends because that's a given. You want to hear it. Yeah, I think it might be a bit boring.
Sorry.
And it's funny, isn't it? The obvious one for me is someone like John F. Kennedy, but I've actually heard he mightn't have been the nicest company from somebody who knew him weirdly. So I'm not sure in that regard. You know, I'd be thinking I'm the biggest Beatles fan in the world, but I don't know. Do I want to sit beside Paul McCartney? Probably. I think I'd bring Paul. You lucky devil.
He's one of the 4.
I think he'd be one of the 4 for sure. I'd like to get sauced up and I'd like Frank Sinatra to knock on the door with a bag of cans and a few cigars. You know.
This is a really good dinner party to start.
It would be, it would be a lot of fun, I think. And so you'd be looking at that. So there'd be no shortage of music, and I love that, and the few tunes. And then the war stories would be fascinating, of course. Who else would I'd tell you who I love is Saoirse Ronan. I get on great with Saoirse, and she's a great talker, and she's got lovely stories, a lovely way about her. She'd probably be good fun as well. I'd have to ask her boyfriend, but then that's +1. So
it's a waste.
Her husband, I should say, Jack. But she'd be kind of in the mix. She's somebody I always love to see coming through the door. That's an expression that keeps coming back to me now. Who do I love to see come through the door as a guest? So that's the kind of milieu I'd be hanging around, and those sort of people. There'd be a politician of some sort. I'd throw Kennedy in the mix just for the.
Well, thank God, because that was my intro into my next question. Because I know US politics is huge. I was outside the studio here reading a couple of your books, which are mostly related to US politics.
Yeah.
What's going on in the US? As someone who's had an interest
since childhood,
your whole life since childhood, and everything's happened in the election, and it's kind of hard not to be sad, in my opinion. Where did this come from?
I think the key thing for me was I watched everything and I listened to everything. I mean, as much as I could. I kind of overdid it. I was saturated. Point. I think the key lesson for somebody like me, as a sort of liberal type person, I'm not really conservative in that sense, but politically. And I think I was listening to all the wrong things. I made that cardinal error of listening to my echo chamber, CNN, New York Times, and the rest is politics. And I was just gorging on kind of slightly left of centre, and they were all telling me they were all wrong, which was fascinating. And yet every day I read, so I'm embedded in the UK now, where I'm living and working. So I'll read the Times, the London Times, and the Telegraph, and the Guardian. So the Telegraph and the Guardian give me the 2. And then magazines-wise, I'll get the Spectator from the right and the New Statesman from the left. But I read everything left and right, so I can get a sense of the place. So with America, back to your point, it seems so desperate because I think so many people I know got it wrong. And people are very sad, and it feels like the bomb has gone off and they were looking through the rubble. But it hasn't even started yet. And look at the appointments he's making. He's appointing some very peculiar, slightly unsavory characters. I'll tell you what, it's like the best season of West Wing that was never made. Unfortunately, it's not TV. It's reality. And I love watching it. I find him compelling to watch.
Have you met him?
Never met him. Would I like to meet him? Of course I'd like to meet him. Of course, who wouldn't want to just have a look him in the eye and say, what is this guy? What
would you ask him if you had one question?
Oh, crikey. Can I come back to you on that? Because I don't want to...
Just come back,
Yeah, come back, because I don't want to just give it whimsical, like, do you want fries with that? But he's a very, I like that expression, very consequential person. And if you love history and you're interested in politics, people of consequence are fascinating. Stalin was fascinating. Hitler was fascinating. And they were people of consequence. So we are watching something extraordinary. It's not boring, and it's compelling. But I worry a little bit from America, yeah, poor old America.
What will it look like in 4 years?
It'll look hopeful, because they'll be facing into a new president. Maybe. I mean, he might change the law to let him run. I mean, they only changed the law in the middle of the last century to stop people running more than twice. So he might just say, let's undo that knot so he can run again. Who knows? I don't want to be hysterical about it. But I think you'll be looking at 4 years of this let's see what he goes. I mean, I don't want to catastrophize either. He might surprise us. Let's not be completely, down on it. But the omens aren't great. But we'll see. But I'd say in 4 if the Democrats get their together, because my God, that was a shambles. You'll see. They could rescue it.
What was the America that you fell in love with? Where you're interested?
I think I fell in love with probably an image of America. I love like American literature and Gatsby, and then into the Kennedy Sinatra thing. I love the cigar smoky and the hotel, the Vegas, the Sands, Dean Martin, the Rat Pack. I like Mad Men. I love all that. I love the suits, the style, the glam. I mean, I'd say in reality, it's probably disgusting if everyone was hungover, vomiting, smelled of cigarettes, bad breath, all of that. It's probably not that nice, and they were horrible to women, and and you just think, okay, I need to work on my influences in life. But from a glamorous point of view, from afar, I think that's part of it. And then the politics are just so interesting, from Kennedy, of course, and then he being shot and the brother Bobby being shot. Now look at Bobby Jr. is in the bloody cabinet in charge of food. How did that happen? Wow, and vaccines. And up to Reagan and Clinton, it was fascinating too. And now I've been to the White House a few times, and I've met Clinton and I've met Obama, and that's been fascinating. And so it's all really interesting. Sorry, you lost me there for a minute because I was just going, wow,
you still have to give me the question that you're going to ask
for Trump. Yeah, I'll have to think about it.
We'll come back. What do they feed you in the White House?
Oh, vol au vent. It wasn't a meal. You were very much in at the Shamrock ceremony, so it was like
nice.
Yeah, it was lovely. The White House is fascinating because it's a place that you think is like the Taj Mahal or the Eiffel Tower. It's somewhere you think it's almost not real, and then next thing you know, you're walking along. Actually, a friend of mine said, "Do you want to meet before we go into the Shamrock ceremony?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And we went in, and I was at the railings of the White House, and he said, "Going to meet a friend of mine." I said, "Okay, sure." And he said, "This is my friend. She's an actress." I said, "Nice to meet you." And it was this woman, and she's very beautiful, and she's very charming. And he said, I said, "I'm sorry, I'm Ryan." She goes, I'm Megan." I said, "Okay." "And what are you in?" She goes, "I'm in a thing called Suits." I said, "Oh yeah, that's the legal thing." Yeah, brilliant. Are you enjoying it?" "Yeah, it's great. Hey, listen, we better go to the White House." "Yeah, this is buzz, isn't it? Have you been?" "No, let's do it." So we went over. I said, "Come on, let me do a picture, you and me." So we got this picture together. You can look it up on the internet. Ryan Tubridy, Meghan Markle.
We'll be clipping this anyway.
It's a great photo. And then somebody on the Late Late, one of my friends on the team, put it on a mug and said, the engagement has been announced off. Because it's a really good photo. Like, it's really intimate looking photo. Like, I'm getting away with murder, like Beauty and the Beast. I'm really... so that was kind of fun. And you're in the White House, and you never know who's. I remember Jerry Adams tapped me on the shoulder, going, "Top of the morning to you, Mr. Tubridy." I was going, "Jerry, what about you?" I mean, it really was a hoot. I mean, I can tell one story that is one of my all-time greatest hits, if you want to hear it. Yeah. But it's a great story, and I say that with no humility. I was in the White House, George W. Bush, Bertie Ahern, Taoiseach and President, and they did the Shamrock, and then I walked away through a door on my own, like Forrest Gump, and looking around at the portraits of Kennedy, and when he's got his hands in his pockets looking down. I was having a moment of just, wow, look at this, look at me here. And this person, I think she was Irish, from the Department of Foreign Affairs, said, have you gone out this door? It's amazing. I said, no, now we're like kids. So go out this door, and it's the portico of the White House, the front door, and all the presidential motorcade is there, and the engines are heating up because the president and the Taoiseach are about to head in as guests of the Speaker of the House to go to Capitol Hill, which is very near the White House, and they're ready to go. And as I'm looking at all these people carriers or whatever, a window comes down, and it's Martin McGuinness saying, "What about you, Ryan?" And I said, "Martin," who I didn't know that well because I wasn't doing the Late Late at that stage, but anyway, he knew from Saturday nights. And I said, "What are you up to?" And then over his shoulder, because it was people carrier, "Jerry." "Hey, Ryan, how are you?" I said, "Yeah, hello, Jerry Adams. Nice to meet you." Tom Foley, the American ambassador to Ireland, goes, hey, Ryan, how you doing?" I said, "Oh, Tom, geez, ambassador, nice to see you. Geez, you're all in there. What's this, like a clown car, like gone mad?" And anyway, we're chatting, and this big brick house comes up, and he said, "Sir, you either have to get in the car or get back in the White House. You cannot be here," because the president was about to come out. And I said, "Okay, Martin, Jerry, ambassador, I have to." And Martin says, opens the door and says, hop in. So I get in the car and I'm scooching up because it's small and not much space. So myself and McGuinness, and now my face is on the window. And McGuinness, you swear I'm making this up. And he's going, so any news? And I said, well, my news is I'm in a car with you. And actually, as you're talking, he was talking about Match of the Day. He said, we watch your show and then we watch Match of the Day. I said, I'm happy for you, but the President of America is walking out in front of me with the Taoiseach, getting into the beast. You're all going away. I'm now in this car with you. I am illegal. In my head, I'm in orange jumpsuit in Guantanamo with, Iron Maiden in my head and being punished for this breach of protocol and security. Anyway, President's in the car and then woo, the sirens are going, we're on the move. And I can't get out. And I'm sitting there going through Washington in this March sunny day. McGuinness, Adams, Foley, all shooting the breeze, asking me questions. Me, a wreck, sweating, losing my body weight. And that's not a lot in sweat. And we get to Capitol Hill. We're going up the marble steps. They're all still, so any news? What about you? What's, how's the family? I mean, what the fine? But again, how am I going to extricate myself from this place? I should not be here. The president's walking up. It's like this marble city on a hill. I'm kind of in heaven and hell. And we get to there's the place settings just outside the door. And you are Jerry Adams. There you go, Mr. Adams. And you are Martin McGuinness. There you are, Mr. McGuinness. And you are Ambassador Foley. There you are. And she said, and you are. And I went, and Adam says, for the purpose of this lunch, you're Alban McGuinness. I said, Alban McGuinness, the mayor of Belfast. He couldn't make it. He's sick. Well, now I'm into impersonation. So I said, just a minute, lads. And I went to one of the protocol people. I said, excuse me. I said, yeah. I said, I shouldn't be here. And she said, we know. I said, how do I get out? She said, you see the daylight there? I said, yeah. Just walk down gently and keep going. And I walked down the steps and into the bright March day and sat down against a wall and went, how did that happen? And I escaped with a story under my arm.
I can't go on to a question about food after that.
We can. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. But
I love that.
It's a good old yarn, isn't it? True story.
Let me finish up with...
This is such a me food podcast because we have talked
I love it.
Nothing about food.
No one talks. This isn't about food.
Oh, is it?
It's about you.
Oh, so it's like the bookshelf.
Yeah.
Like the books are part of it, but really it's stories.
You're using books to get stories and insights. Yeah. I'm using food because it's the only reason I have a right to sit in this seat and ask you questions.
Fair enough. Okay, well, I've enjoyed it.
Give me last meal on earth. What are you eating? What are you drinking? And where are you sitting?
It's a hot dog from a hot dog stand in New York. With a sweating can of Coke. By sweating, I mean beads of cold water from the dew. I'm with my daughters, and we have ketchup and mustard on the hot dogs, and we couldn't be happier. You can take me straight away.
Ryan Tubridy, thank you very much.
Mark, thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
If you like this, you can like and subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, or just tell a friend, and you can watch our full conversation on YouTube. Ryan hasn't eaten his breakfast yet.
Too busy talking.
We will see you next time, maybe in a further season where I can ask you what you're going to ask Donald Trump.
To be continued.